Welcome to this next video in the Model 101 series, and today we're going to be looking at Cursor. Now, as I'll explain, Cursor is less of a model and more of an AI-powered tool, but it is one that is gathering a huge amount of discussion and usage, and it's important for you to understand it, whether you're a developer or, importantly, not a developer. So who are Cursor? Well, Cursor is built by a very small organization called AnySphere, set up by four MIT friends back in 2022. And the following year, they launched Cursor as an AI-powered integrated development environment, or IDE. So anyone that's a developer will be familiar with VS Code as a platform for writing and editing and debugging your code. And what the team at AnySphere have done is to develop an AI-powered version of that. So you're writing your code, but you're then also able to interact with that code using the most common models that are available. So that might be your OpenAI models, 4.0, 01, the O3 series that are coming out at the moment, and Anthropic, specifically Claude Sonnet, which seems to have the best coding behavior and is the most widely adopted. You're also able to bring your own API keys. So you can either use these models through Cursor, or you can bring your own for billing and for privacy reasons. So why is Cursor getting so much press at the moment? Well, from, as I said, a standing start in 2023, they have accelerated to reaching 100 million of revenue in just 2 years, making that one of the fastest organizations to reach that path so far. And why is that? Why are they generating so much revenue? Well, at the moment, 53% of Fortune 1000 companies have got engineers that are using Cursor for their own development requirements. 30,000 different enterprises have chosen Cursor as their integrated development environment of choice. And 100 million plus lines of enterprise code are being written per month with Cursor. So this is not just indie hackers and individuals that are using this as some funky new tool to write code. This is companies that are adopting Cursor to write code faster and to turn out products at a much higher rate. And that is what is driving their revenue growth. So when we think about Cursor, there are so many of these tools that are out there at the moment, and they're all rivaling with new products, new functionality, and it can be hard to keep on top of things. So let me try and make it easy for you to put them into categories. So on the left here, we've got four names that come up a lot. So Lovable, which is the heart, that's a European-based organization. Bolt.new is the URL there. V0, which comes from Vassal, and Replit. Now, each of these are in this space, but they're much more focused on non-developers and helping someone that has got an idea, a vision of what they want to create, to get from zero to a proof of concept that they can click around and maybe even deploy so that people can use their product. So if you're coming from a non-development background and you've got an idea for a personal finance app, then this is often the tools that you're going to start to use. But as you start to get to more complex requirements, which go beyond maybe a simple database, go beyond simple billing, and now you're having to integrate into other back-end or internal systems, then this is when you start to want to move into getting into the guts of the code. And here you're going to come across two products, Windsurf, which I'll do another video for shortly, and Cursor. And this is really where you get into the code and you start to build more complex projects and more complex back-end infrastructure. The way that I like to think about this, I go back to my school days where I would learn French. You might have been learning Spanish or Japanese or any other language. When I think of the different tests that I had to go through, One was reading. Can you read this passage of French? And that was relatively easy because you had a bit of time and you could sort of understand what was going on. The next was listening. So if someone is speaking French to you, can you decipher and decode what is being passed to you? Next up was speaking. So now you're having to actually create, and that was a bit more difficult because now you're having to create the relevant words, but with a little bit of you can sort of bluff your way through it. And then the hardest is the writing, because there is no fooling anyone here. You've either written it exactly correctly or you have not. You've not put the words in the right order. Your grammar and your spelling is not exactly correct. And so that was the hardest. And I think about this when it comes to learning to code. On the left-hand side, as you progress through using tools like Cursor, it becomes easier to read and to understand what you're looking at. But still, it is very, very difficult to write. And certainly with code, where you're having to write something that is exact and it works and it compiles correctly, that is really difficult. And this is where Cursor comes in, that you can read what's in front of you, but it is the AI-powered tool that is going to pick up the heavy lifting of writing good code that works and brings your product to life. So Cursor licenses, how do you actually get hold of this tool? Well, if you're an individual, then there are two plans. There's the free plan, which allows you to get started, and you can start putting in some of your requests and playing around. Very quickly, you will hit some of those limits, and then you will upgrade to a pro plan, which starts at $20. And then there are some usage-based tiers above that. So I think I currently pay $40 a month to have some additional fast requests. Once you start to get 2 or 3 or 4 people in your team that are using Cursor, then you'll start to want to look at the business plan. And this is where you can get some centralized billing, you get some more enforced privacy, and I'll touch on that in a little bit in a moment, and you'll get some single sign-on. Once you get up to more than 250 people in your organization using Cursor, then they have an enterprise plan. They say on their website there are no volume discounts. This is more about just getting better support and getting some different billing options, I suspect, to do with centralized billing, annual billing, and so on. Now, how to use Cursor. Cursor is a desktop application. So you're going to go to cursor.com and you're going to download it either for Mac, for Windows, or for a Linux platform. And you're going to then be able to access that on your desktop, and you're going to open it up. Now I'm going to go through a few tips and tricks, and I'm going to try and walk a very careful path here. This 101 video is not a training video for developers on how to use a Cursor. I come from a non-development background. What I'm going to try and walk you through here is that if you are a non-developer, or you are a manager of developers, maybe you're a product manager or a designer that has never done any development, what I'm hoping to show you here is that this is not something unachievable and scary and dangerous, that actually by playing around with this tool, you can start to become an amateur developer and bring your project to life. So I'm going to walk through Cursor rules and how they can help guide your project. I'm going to walk through documentation, both your own and the documentation of other providers. I'm going to walk through bite-sized building, as I call it. So building step by step, component by component. And then I'm going to show you a little bit about how the AI-powered element of the platform is so powerful to explain to a non-developer what it is that you're looking at. So firstly, rules. Rules guide your project. And within Cursor, it's very easy to add these in. So here, for example, is a rule that says within our project, we have got a documents folder, and that contains all of the details of our project. And I want you to use that to guide our work. So what I have uploaded here, and I'll show you in a minute, is a product requirements document that explains everything about this specific project, which is an AI maturity model. I've uploaded details of what that model is and all of the different tiers. And then I've uploaded the assessment questions that I want this product to ask. So that has all been provided. You'll see up at the top, I've also got, well, I've got this use project docs rule, and then I've got front-end frameworks where I explain that I want to use Tailwind, I want to use ShadCN. I've got a back-end frameworks where I talk about some of the back-end integrations that we're going to use and where this thing is going to be hosted. And by providing this context to Cursor, it means that when we're asking it questions, it understands what we're trying to do. So now let's look at that product requirements document. So I've created this separately beforehand through my sort of project preparation phase. And we've got a full-on PRD for this AI maturity model. I've got an explanation of what the business goals are, the user goals. I've got user stories. And then down below, we get into some of the technical setup and the process that we want to go through to bring this tool to life. What this means is that I can reference this document in some of the chats that I'm having, and it means that Cursor understands exactly what I'm trying to build and why. Not only can I upload my own documents, but many of the tools that I'll be using, so in this case, Supabase as a database, Clark, which is an authentication platform, Vercel provides an AI SDK, which allows me to bring AI capabilities into the tool. And anything else that you're using that has got a docs page, you can index those. And this becomes super helpful as you're going through your project, because maybe if I'm working on the authentication, you can say, right, I'm trying to add in X, Y, Z, and then you can mention the Clark documentation, and that can bring that context into your chat. So super helpful. And then the next thing that I would recommend, and I'll show you a little bit of this now as I open up the tool, is about bite-sized building. If you, let's say you want to rebuild Netflix, if you come in to Cursor and say, build me a new Netflix, you're going to get a very bad output. But if you can take every single screen that you want, and within that screen, see each individual card, and within each card, you can see each individual component to that, whether that's an icon, an avatar, a button, some text. If you can just go building bit by bit, button by button, component by component, and bring all of these together, you'll find that Cursor is much more able to help you. And this is how you should go about building a good project anyway. So with that, I'm going to now dive over into Cursor, and we'll take a look at the tool in action. Okay, now we are in Cursor, and I'll try and show you around without getting too technical. So if you're a non-developer, don't get freaked out. But ultimately, on the left-hand side here, we've got our project structure. I mentioned some of these Cursor rules. So in the front end, this is a Next.js router project. We're going to use TypeScript, and we want you to use our project documents. And here we've got our project document. So this is all the context that we're providing to Cursor, so it understands a little bit about what we're doing here. Next up, we've got our actual files that are within our application. And so the main page, just to give you some context, I'm building an AI maturity assessment that will go onto my website. People can click through it, answer some questions, and it's going to give them a score and some advice on how to roll out AI more effectively in their organization. So the main page is importing this assessment flow, which is here. And this assessment flow is importing these 4 mini components: AI access, governance, people change, and use case. And each of these are different components that have got various questions and an interface. Now, you don't need to understand the code that we're looking at here, but it's more about that separation of concerns, that breaking down each thing into its smallest component, so that we don't have one big complex page of code, but we're breaking it down to its individual elements as we build it. Now, over on the right here, you've got two main ways of engaging with Cursor. You've got chat and you've got Composer. So chat is where you're just asking to discuss something. So I could add some context. Actually, before I do that, let me just mention here, I said earlier about you could use different models. So I'm using Claude Sonnet, the most recent build, which is what I tend to prefer, but you could use ChatGPT 4.0.01, for example. And secondly, I can add in some context. So here I'm going to say we're on the, what are we on? AI access. Yes, let me say AI access assessment. And here I could say, can you help me understand what this page does? And this sort of talked about like learning French, reading, listening, understanding. As a non-developer, I might look at this and go, oh, this looks super complicated. I don't really understand what is going on here. But Cursor does understand. So this component creates an assessment form about AI tool usage in an organization. Let me break down its main features. This is what it does, technical details, questions and options. Great. Then we might say, how does this fit into our overall, and then I could tag in our product requirements document, for example. And then Cursor understands that context. And it's like, right, well, this is where this is going to fit in. So you've got a technical co-founder that is helping you here. So that's the chat. The second part, which is where I tend to spend most of my time, is in Composer. And this is where it takes on the writing element. So let's say here, I've got this assessment flow. And I want to say, we have completed building the assessment questions, and now we want to create a page that shows the user's responses to them and starts to provide a calculation of their maturity. Now down here, we've got agent mode and normal mode. Agent mode is where you're giving permission for Cursor to just get on and do it. So let me submit that. I'll help you create a results page that displays the assessment responses and calculates maturity scores. And now the agent is going to go and take a look at the code, look at the different pages. It's looking at the maturity model documentation that we have provided in our documents. Now let's create a new component called assessment results that will handle this. First, I'm going to create the results component. Now, just as a reminder, I'm a non-developer. There is absolutely zero chance I'm writing this code because I just wouldn't know what to do. But Cursor has an understanding of the context of the project. It understands what we're trying to do. It understands our various look and feel that we've created, and it is now writing that code. Okay, that's now written some code. Now it's found some errors, and it will solve those errors as it goes, just creating a missing progress component, which I hadn't even asked it to do. Now it's going to go and update the parent component to make sure that we've got the results page there. There's some missing dependencies, throwing some errors. Now it's going to ask me to install the progress button. So I'm going to do that. Now it's fixing some errors. I've created a comprehensive results page. Okay, so that is the agent at work. So now let's have a look. Can you start the dev server so we can take a look? Okay, so here we are. We've got our local dev server at localhost 3000 up and running. And here's our AI maturity assessment. And I'm not going to go through the questions too detailed. As each one of these screens swipes past, then this was one of the components that you saw on the screen. So I'm going to be doing some tidying up on the formatting, but we've got the basic elements of the survey here. Next section, use case development, it's the last one. Complete the assessment. Okay, so this is the new page that has been created by Cursor. Assessment results is providing a scoring for the maturity, and then we've got some details for each of the components, and then we can download the report here. So super simple. I could never have written the code for that myself, but by providing Cursor with the product requirements document, providing it with the model, providing it with the questions, it's able to very quickly bring my idea to life. So wrapping up, privacy and governance. Obviously, if you are writing code and that code is in relation to your core business's IP, you want to be focused on that. If you're on a free or pro plan, these are the individual plans, then the default is to train on these models. And what that means in the context of Cursor is privacy mode. So if you go to your Cursor settings by hitting the cog at the top right, you'll see privacy mode. And the default is that it is disabled. If you enable that, then as you see below, if you enable privacy mode in Cursor settings, zero data retention will be enabled and none of your code will ever be stored or trained on by us or any third party. Once you're on the business or enterprise plans, then you are enforced not to train. So you protect everyone across your organization. So my considerations, thinking about Cursor, specifically for me as a non-developer, AI models and these tools like a Cursor will continue to get better, get cheaper, and get easier to use. And I encourage everyone to just play around with these tools. Now, if you're a non-developer, you may have had a look at some of the things I was showing in Cursor and gone, oh my goodness, like there's no way I can get involved with that. But that's exactly where I was just 4 months ago. I'd never written a line of code. I didn't even know what I was looking at. But by getting involved and chatting to Cursor on the right and letting it write some of that code, you suddenly find that you're able to do the reading, the listening, maybe a bit of the speaking, and then it's Cursor that does the writing. If you are an organization that has got development teams or product managers or designers, I would definitely be evaluating those business licenses where you can have that additional governance and the ability to work on these projects together with each other. And I would also, especially if you're a non-development team, be considering how you can test tools like a Cursor or a Lovable, Bolt, Windsurf, and V0 against your most challenging problems. Have you got ideas that you would love to take out to your customers, to your suppliers, to your own employee base for products or modules or little widgets, but you've just never been able to build them before because you didn't have access to development resource or the skills? These are the kind of things that you can start to take to these tools now and really get quite a long way. So for more information on Cursor, go to cursor.com. You can find their pricing page there for the different license types, and then their terms of service which cover the privacy details as well. So with that, hopefully that was a useful, non-technical intro to Cursor, why it is growing so fast, and you feel confident to get your hands onto it.